What's up, my guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another real drone truth type of review. Today we're going to get into it head to head with the DJI Avata versus something like the GEPRC CINEBOT 30 HD with the WASP DJI FPV system on here. This is a brand new quad that just came out. There's a lot of cool stuff about this quad we're going to check out after the flight test. It has built-in LEDs, it can run 6S, and it has zero tumble, unlike the DJI Avata. If you watch this channel, you know that we go through a lot of hardcore tests with the Avata, trying to get the best performance out of it, changing up the props, the motors, taking off the prop guards, the vision positioning system. We've done all kinds of different tests to try to make this quad fly better. But the problem with this one is that it has horrible CG on here. It's underpowered, and the kind of the airframe itself for the power system is too small. So with all those disadvantages, what makes a Cinewhoop fly correct when you're flying FPV freestyle? Proper balance, a side mount battery, and a big enough power system, as well as a little larger airframe on here. This is a little bit larger than what we have for the DJI Avata. It makes a huge difference as far as performance goes. So if you're worried about performance and you don't want that nasty tumble, and you're not really worried about how much things cost, go for something like the GEPRC CINEBOT 30. It's an amazing performing quad, and it looks super cool. They also designed these prop guards to be ultra thin on here, causing zero prop wash and tumble, or what we call a flight controller kickback, vortex ring state, all that stuff. So that's not a problem with the CINEBOT 30 because, well, GEPRC has been making Cinewhoop since the very beginning. These guys know what they're doing with the weight, the balance, and the power distribution. So let's go ahead and get into it with the flight test. Let me show you some examples of the CINEBOT 30 out in the field and how rad it flies on 6S 1050 battery and the GoPro Hero 8 up front. Here we go.
This is going out to all my dreamers and misfits. We got this. Yeah. Let's go. I'm a rocket man. I'ma lock it down. I'm always on the grind, homie, never clocking now. I hear the haters talking, and I just block them out. You in the presence of a legend, better watch them out. They try to bring us down, they say the king is down. They dance around the corpse, they throw me in the fire. I'm rising from the ashes, it's David v. Goliath. I'm gonna win a course, I'm singing in the storm. Put it on the line, I'ma risk it all. My feet are on fire, on my fists are gold. All that's on my mind is where I wish to go. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. For something that was worth it, didn't know that the journey would just bring us back home. Bottle up Patron, here's the hip-hop. Didn't have a lot, now there's Gucci on the flip-flop. Sailing till the ship stops. On El Dorado we be riding. Forget a saddle made in God's image, yeah, I live with him. It is never too late though, Band-Aid rip it. Try something different, time to start lifting. Put it on the line, I'ma risk it all. My feet are on fire, on my fists are gold. All that's on my mind is where I wish to go. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back from the flight test, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weight comparison between the CINEBOT 30 and the DJI Avata. The DJI Avata sitting on the scale at 256 grams without the battery. And I left the camera on the CINEBOT just because this one comes with a 4K camera, and guys might mention that. So let's go ahead and put the proprietary battery on the DJI and weigh that. 418 grams total takeoff weight there. So Let's put the Cinebot 30 on there by itself. We're looking at 252 grams with our battery of choice. This is a 6S 1050 battery from our line, Tattoo our line battery series. That's looking at 423 grams. So the DJI Avata setup is a little bit lighter. 423 grams for the Cinebot with the battery, 418 grams for the DJI Avata, about 5 grams lighter total takeoff weight between the two. And now we get to the fun part. I plugged in the battery so you can see this close up on the bench. The LEDs look awesome on here. And the cool thing is that this is kind of strip lighting. It is not individual LEDs on here. So it's one long piece of lighted tube through the prop guard, and it's plugged into the flight controller. It's down step to 5 volt. You can replace these if you need to, and the prop guards themselves are kind of transparent, so it lets the color shine through. I don't know yet that we can change these inside Betaflight. I'll try to find that for you if that information is available, that we can change the color. That would be super awesome. But I love the way these look, and I have to say, these are quite durable. I did crash this straight into the concrete. I've got a little bit of a scuff here and in the back, and the GoPro Hero 8 took a biff right on the top of the camera as well. So it went down head first on the concrete and nothing broke. These are replaceable prop guards as well. You've got this unibody plate on the very bottom here covering the wasp on the bottom, and there's about 8 bolts that will release that for access to that, but I had no problem getting to the wasp unit as well. Under here, there's a trapdoor for the USB-C port in here. You can see it just under there where the flashing light is, and there's also a bind button there for your goggles. This setup runs on the V2 and the V1 goggles as well. You can get firmware updates on it from the DJI Assistant. And if you look on the very top, this frame is a 3K carbon fiber frame, and it is a unibody top plate, so super durable. We have a wider stance on this quad as well for the wheelbase. What that does is it gives us extra stability for freestyle maneuvers. Unlike this one, it's a little bit of a tighter wheelbase. And since you have smaller motors on here and a smaller wheelbase, this one's more susceptible to tumble in the freestyle maneuvers. A wider wheelbase stance with a larger power system on here really makes a huge difference. We have 1804 series motors on here, and these are strictly from GEPRC. They're running great with the 3-inch props, and this one's able to run 3-blade props. Where we tested the 3-blade props with the Avata, it just wasn't powerful enough to be able to support the weight of this quad. Now, one of the reasons why this quad outperforms the DJI Avata is because it has Betaflight and the GEPRC F722 flight controller on here. It's an AO flight controller with 45 amp ESCs. The power system on here is larger, like I mentioned before. It's running the GEPRC SpeedX branded X2 versions of the 1804 2450 kV motors for 6S, 24 kV for 6S, and they have 3450 kV for the 4S motors. And this is a little closer look up at the motors. It has a nice stator here with nice thick copper coils. It has some TPU dampening in between the motor and the frame, giving it a little less vibration to the frame and the flight controller. One of my favorite parts is the WASP camera up front and GEPRC's brand new aluminum side plates for protecting camera. So we have a ton more protection here than we do versus something like the DJI's camera is on the Avata. It's kind of hanging out up front. These plastic sidewalls don't offer a lot of protection, but this is a lot smaller profile setup here, and it really has proven to be super resilient in crashes over the years. Aluminum side plates make a huge difference. A lot of companies like Diatone and others where iFlight have been implementing these since the very first iterations of X-frame FPV racing quads. Carbon fiber and aircraft aluminum is really what a lot of us expect in the FPV community. So that's no surprise that GEP chose that type of material for this frame. I do love the fact that they also have dampening on here for the camera setup. It's a little kind of more aggressive, firm dampening than what I've seen in the past. These should last quite a while. Sometimes these grommets do wear out, but I was also surprised in the box that they included 2 different cables, one for 4S for hooking up your decased GoPro to the battery directly on the balance lead over here on this side. So this camera can be powered from 4 to 6S, which I think is super cool. So I have a lot of versatility there. If you're a 4S kind of guy and you're going to get the 4S version of this, you get both the cables included in the box, which I think is super cool. So either way you want to go there, you're pretty much set up to power this off the battery or the flight controller. Now looking at the CINEBOT 30 from the back side, you can see these arms stick out a little further than the battery. We have an XT60 connector back here, and a lot of times I've seen companies use an XT30 on here, so it's nice to see thicker gauge wire and an XT60 to support 6S battery on here, getting plenty of power to this motor system. So we also have a setup back here for 2 antenna posts to come out. I'm running mine on DJI controller today, so I was able to just bind it straight up to the Wasp flight controller and use that as a built-in RX. If you have the DJI controller, the one that's the FPV controller, you can use that with this drone. That's pretty cool. Not the gray one, it's the larger style controller. And on the back, we also have the smaller left-hand circular polarized, kind of bendy antenna back here. So when I did crash, this actually was really resilient in that crash, and it didn't end up breaking or severing off inside this TPU mount back here. It gives it a nice flex, and it has a nice shock between the frame and the TPU mount. So I feel like this is going to be on there for the long run, and as long as it doesn't get caught up in the props down here. That's the only drawback that I see about this design. But I have to say, I love this quad, and I feel like this is such a level up for GEPRC. A lot of times, I've talked about this before on my channel. When I get a GEPRC quad, I pull it out of the box, I bind it up to my transmitter, I set up the switches, I go out, I do my flight tests, and a lot of times I have 0 vibrations in the tune. The performance is good. The quad doesn't have mechanical problems. Other quads I've taken out of the box, unfortunately, like Ishin type stuff, and they've had problems just plugging them in. I've even had quads catch on fire on the bench. So I gotta say the quality is there with the GEPRC products. And again, I would stand by this one, and I'm gonna give this one 2 thumbs up in this review. If you get a CINEBOT 30, you will love it. My reviews are no BS, guys, and I always talk about drone truths on the channel. That's all you're going to find here on my channel, and we're going to flight test it, and always the proof is in the video. So go back and look at the video. If you want to compare this to DJI Avata, you can, but honestly, there is really no comparison here between this and the Avata. They're 2 different animals. But this one will eat the Avata for lunch when it comes to freestyle and performance. So if that's what you're looking for, grab one in the link below. You can grab the analog version, or you can grab the Wasp version that I have here. I think it's a sick quad. But anyway, guys, thanks again for watching my reviews. I'm Mr. Camps, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.